Hi everyone, welcome back to C Sharp Corner Live Show. I'm your host Stephen Simon, and we are back with another episode of C Sharp Corner MB Show. One of my favorite show that we stream on C Sharp Live. And if you are someone who is joining us for the very first time, C Sharp Live is a dev streaming destination. We started almost like a year and a half back, and looks like it's gonna rain at my place. So I'm joining from Delhi, India. It's a really nice weather out there. And let me know from which location you are joining. And today I'm pretty excited. We have taken a break from MVP show for almost a month because we have been doing many conferences in past couple of months. We have done close to 5 to 6 conferences, and this week we have IT Security Virtual Conference, and the previous week we had Women Data Summit. And if you have been following us on Twitter or on LinkedIn, we are doing Azure Summit from September 13th to September 19th. It's going to be one of the world's largest Azure event, and we are going to host nothing less than 120 speakers. It's going to stream for 7 days for a week, 15 to 16 hours of live streaming. I don't know how we are going to do it, but never mind. Let's get to the business and talk about today's show. So for today's live show, we have Daniel. What an amazing! He needs no introduction. I'm not going to read his bio. I know him. He's he's a community rock star. But the day is not far when you will see him hosting a Microsoft MEP. Until then, he is a C Sharp Corner MEP and very active in the community. And I think he's a Microsoft student. Oh, they changed the name. Whether never mind, I'm not very much positive about the name, but I still like the previous name. But I think they have made it to Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, something they have done it. I see people joining. Hi, Sarvesh. Welcome to the live show. You're joining for Delhi. Keep your comments coming in from which location you're joining. And in today's show, we're going to talk about Azure App Services for .NET developers. It goes over my head, but we have an amazing speakers to talk about it. So without any further ado, let's add our speaker of the day, Daniel. Hi, Daniel. Welcome to the live show.
Hey, hi Simo, hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be here.
I see your background has changed from last time. It's so amazing. And also, you have come in so branded. How are things at your place, Daniel?
Everything fine, and just new gifts from C Sharp Corner, like this T-shirt, for example, and the ideal to show in this case at the MVP show.
Yeah, that's great. I see more people joining in. Pradeep is joining from Kathmandu, Nepal. Hi, Pradeep.
Oh,
Thanks for joining in. And
hi.
Nepal is a nice place. Then we have Ankit. He's joining from Ahmedabad, which is actually from India. So, Daniel, I do know I'm connected with you on social media. You're very active. I do know you work in the .NET ecosystem and .vvm. Would you like to go ahead and quickly give an introduction to people who are joining us for the very first time about who you are and what you do?
Oh, okay. Hey, hi everyone. I'm Daniel. Usually, I want to, or I like to contribute about everything about Azure, specifically about how to work with web applications, and also in this case with .NET example, for example, with Blazor or .vvm2 to show in this case and play with each other and learn, to have these spaces to interact, and the most important thing, to connect from all parts of the world. And for example, in my case, my native language is Spanish. I really try to speak in English that we can understand with,
Yeah,
all of you.
I really want to learn the Spanish, right? The only one that I know is gracious. That's all I know. I've hosted a few of them. So, but I really want to learn Spanish. It's a beautiful
Oh,
language.
for me, it would be a pleasure to help you and everyone to learn Spanish. Usually, we can hear about someone want to learn Spanish, but everyone is welcome.
Yeah. All right, Daniel. So, having said that, you do so many. You speak in many conferences, live events, right? Having said that, you are a student, no doubt, but I see you also are an application, a system engineer, right? So, what's all that? Do you also work and study at the same time? Because it looks like you're not just involved in the students dev community, you're very much involved in the, I should say, professional dev community that we have, right? So, how did you get in there, and what's up with that thing? System engineer.
Yes, a few weeks ago, last May, I graduated from the university.
Wow.
Uh, yes, and in the about 3 years ago, I have been the opportunity to be Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, and also in 1 year, I have the opportunity to be a C# Corner MVP. Recently, I have been renewed. And I currently work on Riganti as .vpm developer advocate, contributing about this ecosystem. And also here in Ecuador, I'm working in a health company to provide a system um, to this center to support the people, in this case, the nurses, medic doctors, and the employees of this center, and also managing the cloud infrastructure. So in
Yeah,
this,
that's great.
see, yes, so this is in a few words that I work, and today I share a little about this, in this particular case, about Azure App Service to deploy our web applications.
All right, Daniel, that's really good. Thanks for accepting the invitation. I really appreciate it. Right, we have many people joining. Somebody joining from UK. That's great. Hey, thanks for joining. I think we have some of your mates joining in from Ecuador.
Hey,
So Daniel, he did say that you work in the Azure ecosystem and not just .NET, but you're very much active in this Azure and also Azure is humongous, right? So what are the services or the products you actually focus more when it comes to Azure?
there are many focus that we consider, for example, infrastructure as a service, for example, to create our virtual machine and set up all of this. This is one environment. But the other environment is, for example, focus in our code, implement the functionalities, and with the platform as a service environment, uh, focus only on that. For example, in Azure, we can focus in our code, and for example, in Azure App Service resource, we can only deploy our applications to these applications can be accessed for other people through the internet. So
Yeah,
this
I do know
cool.
Azure is very exciting, and so is your session today, Daniel. So today you're going to talk about Azure App Services for .NET developers, right? That's the topic for today. So for next 35-40 minutes, what should audience be expecting from this session?
Not everyone is welcome. We can start with basic concepts, and step by step. This is a very practical session to learn, for example, how to deploy our static web apps, and also how to deploy a real project. In this case, for example, with on ASP.NET with .vm applications, and additional features and on Azure App Service too.
I'm always very excited whenever someone talks about Azure Static Apps because it's not been long that Microsoft released it. It was only last year, and it's almost been a year or a half maybe. But people have been doing some really great work with Azure Static Web Apps, and yeah, I'm really excited and looking forward to that to today's session. Even I fumbled, so never mind. So feel free to go ahead and share screen, Daniel, and then I'll add it to the stream. And everyone who's watching, please feel free to go ahead and drop any questions that you like for the live sessions. Any question is welcome. You can ask Daniel about his background. You can talk how much what was his CGPA during his graduation. So you can ask him any questions. All questions are welcome. Feel free to drop them in the comments. And yeah.
Yes, feel free to write in the section comments your questions,
Yeah.
suggestions, and all of that. And okay, I'm ready. And again, it's a hoopla show to be able to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and I share my all screen with you. Okay,
Yeah, we can see
thank,
your screen, Daniel. Yeah, all good.
thank you. So welcome everyone again to all of you. Pleasure to be here. I'm Daniel Gomez to present you Azure App Service for .NET developers at MVP Show. Today, we can learn about a first field about Azure App Service. And with this introduction, we can go to the practical section. In the first step, we can deploy static web applications. For example, if we have HTML with CSS files, we can deploy these static applications on Azure, and then we can take account a real project, for example, from ASP.NET, and deploy this project, for example, from Visual Studio 2019, and then we can see other features, for example, continuous deployment when we have a GitHub repository with, for example, we work in a team, and then special features about cloud computing on this particular resource about Azure App Service, and then we can have question answers and comments to interact with each other. So we can get started talking about Azure App Service. As we previously mentioned, we can consider on Azure two environments: infrastructure as a services and platform as a service. When we're talking about infrastructure as a services, we can talk about prepare our virtual machines, the compute, the network to deploy our web application. In this scenario, we can personalize our environment to deploy our applications, in particular setup. But in the other hand, we can find the platform services. In this case, for example, we can focus on our solutions. For example, in web applications, the only thing we need to do is, for example, focus in our functionalities of our application. And with platform services, a particular case in applications platform, the only thing we need to do is set up our environment, not the machine, only the environment, to deploy our web application in few steps. So today, for example, we can learn about it. In other cases, we can find cognitive services to work personalized models about machine learning, and other environments in our platform services. So today we focus on applications platform. So here is the description about Azure App Service. Azure App Service allows you to create front applications, backend, mobile, and also, for example, APIs in any language without managing our infrastructure. This is the concept about platform as a service. In this particular Azure App Service, we can consider some features about cloud computing, for example, high availability, and also this is compatible with Windows and Linux system operatives. And also we can have an environment on GitHub or Azure DevOps or any GitHub repository. Today, we can see also a GitHub project to deploy our applications with continuous deployment. So we can see that in a few minutes. So we can get started now with the practical part. We can start do the deploying static web apps. So let me show you an example and close this. Okay. I have this static app. For example, this is an HTML and a picture. This is only an example, remember? Suppose that we can, or we want to deploy this application or this static web app on internet to the people access it. So we can use Azure App Service to deploy this static web app. This is only an HTML. So the first thing we need to do is go to the Azure portal, and here we need as a first point an Azure subscription. We can consider, for example, the offer of Azure for students or Azure free for the general public. But in this case, we can consider that we have an Azure subscription now. So this is the Azure portal. For the people don't know it, I present to you. I introduce the Azure portal for you. And here we can see the dashboard of Azure and also the resource most frequently on this provider. So the resource that we need to or we want to do is Azure App Services. We can find this resource here, and also in this other part, App Services here. Here we can see the previously resources that we have created, and in this particular case, I'm going to create an Azure App Service. So in this section, we need to select one thing. As a first point, that our subscription that we want to work in this case, and also the resource group. In this case, I'm going to create a new resource, for example, MVP show. Here, and for example, in this resource, we can group our Azure App Service, and also, for example, if we work with databases, we can put in this resource too. Also, we need to specify the instance details. For example, in this case, is the name of Azure or Azure App Service. And for example, in this case, in web app name, we can access to a subdomain, azurewebsites.net, to access to our web application. So let me put MVP show 1 azurewebsites.net, publish our code, or also we can consider a Docker container. In this case, is a code. This is a static application, a orientation in this case, and the runtime stack. In the runtime stack, we can put all of these or anyone because this is a static application. Then we need to specify when we're working with a framework to specify the stack. Also, we need to specify the operating system. In this case, we don't or will not set up this machine. This is only to specify when operating system will we work with our web application. So in this case, is Windows, for example. We can also select Linux, the region. I put in this case, and also we can consider the Azure App Service plan. Let me create someone app plan.
Daniel, can you zoom in a little bit?
Can you see? Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay. Over here. Okay. In our plan, we can specify some sites, and in each site, we can find some features. For example, we can, as a first point, see this F1 plan. This is a free plan. And in this case, for example, we can find this storage. For example, if we need more, we need to specify other plan. And also, for example, in this D1, we can see the custom domains. And also, for example, in production environments, we can select, for example, traffic manager or auto scale. This is, for example, some features of cloud computing to provide this functionality. And all will depend of what we need to do. So in this case, I will put in a free plan. And this is all to create our Azure App Service resource. Here, this is the summary of our resource, and now we can create our resource on Azure. So this is very fast, 20 or 30 seconds about, and we can wait for that. Here we can, for example, when we wait, see the process. For example, we can see, for example, the operation details on this section. In the scenario, for example, if everyone is wrong, we can see, for example, the details here, but usually this is not happen because, as you can see, our resource is ready. And here we can see the overview or Azure App Service resource. So the first thing we need to, or we can do, is see our web application runs. So on this section, on Explore, we can see like a hello world of our Azure App Service that this mentioned that everything is fine. And now it's time to deploy our code. So as a first point, we want to deploy this static web app. So in this case, we can go to the option on this resource called Advanced Settings, Advanced Tools here, and go to these tools. Let's go to that. Maybe a second. Okay, here we can see, for example, the files of our application, for example, into the debug console here. This is very familiar with Windows users. For example, here we can see the site and the www root. And here, for example, this is this hello world template. This is the HTML. For example, if I delete this, there is nothing to show here. And now it's time to deploy our static app. And it's so easy that the only thing we need to do is we can push here our HTML, say CSS files, and static files too. And if I refresh this page, I can see my static web application deploying on Azure App Service. So as you can see, it's very easy to deploy. This is our first example of web static applications. But now, what happens if we're working with a real project, in this case, for example, with .NET. So this is our next demo to see how to deploy this on Azure. Now we can see a demo how to deploy in a web project with, in this particular case, on ASP.NET with .vvm in Visual Studio 2019 for .NET developers, in fact. So in this other scenario, I'm going to show you this demo. This is an application. Let me show you. This application is in .NET 5. Let me run that you can see this demo. Okay. Okay, it's here, and this is a single application. It's a CRUD operations to create, read, update, and delete students. And this is application, for example, connected with a database. And to deploy our applications, one thing we need to consider before is if we want to do this process and if we have a database associated, the database is all can must be or have to deploy it also in the cloud. There is no problem when, but the database need to be deployed on Azure, for example, too. So in this case, this configuration is done because here, let me show you in the app settings project. I specify, for example, um, um, a SQL database resource on Azure to deploy this database associated to this project. I know that this is not the best way to specify our connection stream, but in this case, this is a demo, and we can show in this way. So the database is ready on Azure, and in this case, our intention is deploy our project on Azure App Service to access it. So in this case, in our solution, let me show or let me zoom my screen a little more. Okay. In our solution on Visual Studio, we need to identify our principal project. In this particular case, for example, this is a project with .vvm, and also we have class libraries, and we need to specify or go to the principal project. And in our principal project, we need to click right and create a new profile of publication on this case. One particular thing to consider more is that we need to sync up in our application, in our Visual Studio, with the same credential of Azure account. So with this in mind, we can create a publish profile to deploy our application. In this case, our environment is on Azure. We can, for example, in other scenarios, consider Amazon Web Services and, for example, select other configuration, but in this case, it's Azure. On Azure, we can have Azure App Services on Windows or in Linux, also in containers, and also, for example, in other cases, in an infrastructure as a service environment, an Azure virtual machine. But in this case, cases, for example, an Azure App Service on Windows. Let me select that. Okay. And here we can, for example, create other Azure App Service resource in this section, or identify on our Azure App Service instance this resource. So we can select that to replace the content on this page and finish. This is our profile to deploy our application in a directive way from Visual Studio to Azure App Service. So this is ready to publish, and this is the summary to profile publication. And all you need to do in this case is go to the publish button and the process begins. What happened in this case? The publish files of our projects are generated and deployed to our Azure App Service resource. When here, let me show you the advanced tools here in this directory. In www root, the files will be deployed here. As you can see, this is updating now because our project is deploying. So to finish, our Azure App Service will be restarted. 1 second more. Okay, as you see, restarting the web app. You can see the results now. Okay. 1 second. This is the first time. Okay, our application is on Azure App Service, available for all of you, MVP show 1.azurewebsites.net, and this is available for everyone. And this is the process to deploy our application from Visual Studio to Azure App Service. But what happens if we work with a team, many people is or are doing changes in our project? We need to consider other environment, other focus to deploy our applications because we are working with a team. So in this other scenario, we can do a continuous deployment with a repository on GitHub. So this is our next example. So the first thing we need to do is have a repository on GitHub. So let me show this process to create a repository from this same project. And on this case, we need to have a Git installed in our computer. And on Visual Studio, we can create a Git repository from our project. So this is the wizard to create or associate our project to a repository on GitHub. So we can add account of GitHub in this particular case. In this case, I have this ready. Repository name, MVP show, for example. And I put this public repository. And this is to push our code on GitHub project. So this is all. Let me do that. And this is loading. Okay. Let's see Git changes to see, for example, the commits. And for example, we can see to outgoing. And okay, 0 outgoing. That is, everything is ready. Let me open my GitHub and see here our new GitHub repository. Okay, MVP show is here 38 seconds ago. And now the thing we need to do is associate our Azure App Service resource with this GitHub repository. For this purpose, I'm going very fast and other Azure App Service resource that you can see the process. This part we previously see the process. I'm going to put this so fast. The runtime is stuck. In this case, we need to specify .NET 5 because this is the environment of our project. And fun fact in this case, .NET 6 is with early access now. We can test our .NET 6 web application on Azure Web Service because, for example, for who don't know, the version of the .NET 6 will be released on this in November on .NET Conf. So this is something to consider, but from now we can prove and play with .NET 6 also on Azure App Service. Okay, in this case is .NET 5, the region, and the resource plan. This is the thing we need to specify and create our Azure App Service. In this case, 20 seconds. We wait only a moment for that. And remember, if you have any questions, comments, you can write in the section comments to review later. So 1 second more. Okay, the resource is done. And here we need to go to the section Deployment Center to associate our GitHub repository. Here we can set up our environment, our continuous deployment environment. And here, the first thing we need to consider is the source. We can consider other scenarios, for example, Azure reports to have a DevOps environment, or local Git, Bitbucket, or manual deployment. For example, if we have the files of our projects on Dropbox, OneDrive, we can consider that. But in this case, it's GitHub, and the provider to deploy our project is, for example, in this case, GitHub Actions. We can consider other scenarios, for example, App Service, Build Service, Azure Pipelines, but GitHub Actions works very well, and we can put in this way our GitHub repository. We can log in with our credentials here, and now select our account. In this case, this is my account, and the repository or our project. In this case is MVP show, this project, and the branch. In this case is only branch, master, and also the runtime stack, .NET, and the version .NET 5. With this configuration, the workflow file will be generated on our GitHub repository like this to complete the steps to deploy our project. That is, build our solution and deploy it. So let me save that. Okay. And the process begins. Let me refresh. Okay, the process to deploy our application begins. So every time we do a push on our repository, we can have automatically the deployments on this section, and we don't have to do anything because the deployment center will do the work for us. So in this push, the first push on this repository is in status in progress, that is deploying our application. We can also have the status success, that is everything was fine, and also in other scenarios something failed. So we can, for example, here see what's wrong with our deploying, because we can see, for example, here the logs too. But in this case, it's in progress. Here in the logs, we can let me. Okay, we can go again to our repository. In this case, we are working with GitHub Actions, and this is a flow, as we can see previously in the preview file to this configuration. And this workflow is, for example, build our application, in this case with .NET 5, and also deploy the files on our Azure App Service. So, for example, in the build process, we can see the detailed process. For example, set up the job, that is configuring the GitHub Actions, and all of this process. The entry process to build and deploy, it's about 2 or 3 minutes, so we can wait for that. And also, if we return to talking about this, we can see, for example, in the build, that's the setup to .NET Core. For example, this is the entry process, no? For example, if we are working with a virtual machine, we don't have these options. We need to do this whole process to deploy our applications. Okay, the process is done about build. And this is, for example, compile our applications. For example, 0 warnings, 0 errors. If we have an error in our project, we can see on this file. And this is, for example, one thing we need, or we can consider that it fails in our project. The .NET publish, the complete job in this case to build, and the deploy process is only, for example, to deploy our files, the files generated on build on Azure App Service. And this is very fast. And if we go back here, we can see the status success and active. We can have several versions of our projects and exchange with each other. And if we go to the overview section on our Azure App Service resource, we can see the blows section. And this is the first time. And see our web application with continuous deployment. Okay. I can see that some of you create some records here, and as you can see, everything is fine. If I do, or if I write some changes here, let me do something fast. For example, here I'm going to create this title. For example, not students, I'm going to write MVP show, for example, and change or save these changes. Yeah, for example, commit, and here git push. Okay, pull and push. This is syncing in our project. Okay, 0 outgoing, and here again in our Git repository. No, MVP show. Here we can see the new changes, and in actions, a new process to deploy our application. As you can see, this is automatically. In our 2 or 3 minutes, you can see the changes here. And in this case, MVP show. And that is that we can consider to deploy our web applications. So let me see our agenda. Now, with these environments, we can see a special features of Azure App Service to consider in our web applications. So, the first thing we need to consider, or we can consider, is, for example, this. Actually, this is mvpshow.azurewebsites.net, but usually we want to have our own domain, and we can do this configuration in easy steps to have our domains. So let me put in this way. Okay. On Azure App Service, in Azure in general, there is a resource called App Service Domains. App Service Domains allows you to create a domain, and in this case, in a live, this is not a record. I'm going to buy a domain. Okay, and in this case, as other resource on Azure, we need to specify the subscription and the resource group 2. I'm going to put, in this case, MVP show, and here we can find or search the name of our new domain. So let me think. I don't know MVP show. I don't use that, but let me see. This domain is available. Okay, here MVP show, but I'm MVP show. Oh, there is no available. this is only an example. I will put in this way. mvpshowdaniel.com. This domain is available. And now we can go to the contact information. Okay, let me put here. This is, I'm going to put Cuenca. This is my city in Ecuador, in Azuay, the state of province, city Cuenca, 01, 02, 03. Okay. Next, for example, we can see if we want to auto renewal our domain and privacy protection too. In this case, I disable this option and review or create. This is a summary of our new domain. This value can be discounted on our Azure credits. And this is all. Let me create this domain with Azure App Service domain. Okay, when it happens, this is very fast too. Let me see here. MVP show. The change previously we do in our project is done. And the deployment is done too. So only a second to have our mvpshowdaniel.com domain and associate with this web application. Okay, 1 second more. Operation details is here. Okay, when it is happens, let me go back to with our Azure App Service MVP show, and here we need, or we have to have a plan that support custom domains. When we can see that on this section, scale up. This is a functionality of cloud computing. Scale up to provide more functionalities. And here, for example, remember this is a free plan. But for example, in shared infrastructure, we can see the custom domains feature. And let me see other one new. Let me see in production. For the some things, I'm going to put this on production, but I also want to show you the slots to environments. But in this particular case, the thing we need to consider is the custom domains. Now we can apply it. Waste the time. Okay. Apply it, and we can now work with Azure App Service in our Azure App Service with domains. So let me see our domain mvpshowdaniel.com is ready. And the only we need to do in a very fast way is to associate this domain with our Azure App Service. In this resource, we can see the options, custom domains. Let me see. Or if you don't, we can find this. We can write here domains. And here is it, for example, the assigned custom domains now is mvpshow.azurewebsites.net. On this section, we can add other custom domain. In this case, is our domain, mvpshowdaniel.com. Validate and a record configuration, but our app service or our domain is in the same account on Azure. We can put in this case very fast custom domain. Okay. Okay, the custom domain is assigned. If we go to the overview, we can see the URL mvpshowdaniel.com. Let's see. Just a second. This is the first time, remember again, that we are loading this. Okay, mvpshowdaniel.com, and our application is associated with this domain. But this is not secure. This is this is no nice. The other thing we can consider is to assign SSL certificates. For example, in Azure are very expensive, but I have I don't know how to say this in English, a secret, no, something to we can consider to have our certificate in a free way. Here on TLS settings, we can go to the section public key certificates. Let me see, private. Okay, here in private key certificates, we can create an app service managed certificate that help use with a certificate to this resource, this domain, sorry. So here, this is the only domain we have associated to this. And here we can create an Azure App Service Managed certificate, because the other way is find here certificate, App Service certificates. But if we go into this section in a fast way, we can see the plans, and the plans are some expensive, I guess. But the process that we can that we are doing now allows you to have a free certificate in our Azure App Service. So it could take 1 or 2 seconds or minutes, sorry, and we can hope a little more. For that, when it is ready, we can go to the section, this section, at TLS building, and add this resource. So let me see if other example we can consider on this case is, for example, environments. If we have, for example, development environment, test environment, and also production environment, we can have a configuration here in our Azure App Service, and this option is deployment slots. In deployment slots, we can have slots to have, for example, the development environment and also the production environment. We can show you very fast example here. This is our currently project MVP show in production here. But for example, if we add a new slot here, for example, dev MVP show dev.azurewebsites.net. This is other, for example, we can put this new environment. And let me show you this when this creating. Here we can put, for example, this is on MVP show dev. We can have a development scenario to, for example, have a continuous deployment, put the changes on our team, and then put this project on production. And the thing is in production, change to the development environment. Let me show you. Here, the currently project is MVP show. If we go to the MVP show dev environment, this is so similar to Azure App Service 2, as you can see. Here we can go to the browse, and here see hello world. This is on MVP show dev, and this is on MVP show and on production, right? So I'm go back, and here we can change our slots in this option, swap. And here we can select the source. In this case, is in dev, and the target is in MVP shown in production. And we can change all environments. And now swap. This could take 30 seconds about to do this process. So we can wait only seconds more to see this functionality. Okay. How is our processes? Okay. Set. And the change is ready. This is the production, remember? And now this is our new production that previously are on development, and the development is now production. This is the change with this functionality of slots on Azure App Service. This is loading. Okay. Oh, I don't know what happened. That I can review, but if I'm going to only MVP show, okay, I now we can consider, for example, slap again and do this process. Okay. This is done. And let me refresh. I don't know if it will work. Will work. Not yet. Okay. This is, for example, the thing we need to we can consider to have the slots. And the last thing pending to review is our certificate. Remember here, let me see. Certificate or SSL. Here our certificate, private certificate is generated here. And the thing we need to do is associate with our domain. Here we can select ATL SSL and select our custom domain. In this case is mvpshow.daniel.com, and the private certificate is that. Also can select this and add the binding, and in this way we can have a free certificate with for our resource. If we go back to custom domains, we can see that our domains are secure, mvpshow.daniel.com and mvpshow.azurewebsites.net too. So this is the example in this case to that I want to present today on this MVP show, and I really hope that you like it. And Simon, I don't know if you are here.
I'm there. I'm
Okay.
there, and I absolutely loved it, Daniel. Take about what an amazing session it was. 4, 5, 6 demos coming one after the other. And every time I had a doubt, like, okay, I'm going to ask this to Daniel after he ends, you were definitely there to cover it. And lucky you have a subscription. You have been spending a lot in this live show. Imagine if this was
It's a
your
special
client.
occasion.
If this was your clients and the tenant, you would have been gone. Quick question, Daniel. I really like that. I think they call it app service now. Back when in 2013, 14 was just the web apps. You could actually go ahead and do the same thing, and now a bit flavor of this GitHub Actions. So I think it's more of the same core concept that it started with web apps. It's just the new more technology and Sprinkle and coming up. A quick question: you did go ahead and select some of the tiers, right? So when you actually started with the free tier, what were the specifications that you got it for your servers? What was that?
To start
Yeah,
learning
free
about
tier.
this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, my education is very informal in this case because I usually the thing I do is play with the resources, and for example, if there is something that not work, I share why, and in this way, uh, I learn about that. But this is the no right way because we can consider other options. For example, attend to events like these to learn from other people, and also consider, for example, tutorial articles or inclusive the Microsoft Learn
Mm-hmm.
to
I see it
to
even
learn
right now.
about this.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Right. Let's take one question from Omisha. Right. She's asking, how can we enable error logging in Azure in case our website is down, any database error or any unknown error? Is this feature available? How can we enable it? I mean, definitely it's available in Azure. I think more specifically, since Azure App Service is so easy, is it also available in App Service?
There are some ways that we can consider. For example, on GitHub Actions, we can see the logs. And in this case, for example, if there are something wrong in our project, we can see here, for example, I don't know, uh, the variable is not defined in a correct way. And also we can see, for example, the the advanced tools on CMD and Kudu and App services. As we can see, for example, to deploy our static apps, we can see here the logs files too. For example, in our productions, we can have, for example, division by 0, and we can see in the logs these errors that are produced on productions too. So we can have these ways to detect these errors.
All right, that's great, Daniel. I hope Omisha, Daniel, sounds was right to you. Quick question, Daniel. When you said that you can actually go ahead and deploy from any kind of project, it may be .NET, it may be PHP, it may be Ruby, it may be Perl, or any kind of thing, right? So that's absolutely great. But what are the different database options available? Definitely MySQL, I saw it, right? What maybe PostgreSQL might be available. What database options are available in this Azure App Service?
Okay, the concept of the process is the same. We need to compile our application and then deploy this to Azure App Service. For example, in other cloud providers, the process is very similar too. But for example, in this case, we do the process with Visual Studio. For example, in Visual Studio Code, we need to do one step more maybe,
Mhm.
and this will change or of environment, but the concept of the process is the same. For example, if we have a GitHub repository, in this case was with .NET, but in other cases, for example, with Angular, that is not JS at the end. And the process in this particular case for the continuous deployment is the same process as we can see here.
Yeah, I saw it, and I also see some people submitting, adding new students to your database. You definitely want to go back and clean it.
Oh, okay. This is the only thing.
Daniel, that was a really great session. To be honest, I wasn't expecting it to be so much packed with the demo. I personally really loved it. Starting from creating a resource group and making your first service, then doing it drag and drop a simple static HTML file, then doing it with a ASP.NET Core application, doing with GitHub Actions, adding HTTPS, then also moving it to dev to production, all that. That was absolutely amazing, Daniel. Any final thing you want to plug in before we move, before we end the show today?
Oh, thank you very much for your words and everyone for being here. I really enjoyed this because I usually I'm doing these presentations, but in Spanish, and do
Yeah.
it in English is a very challenge, and I'm very excited to do. I hope that you can or you understand me on this
Yeah.
section.
I'm gonna drop Daniel's Twitter handle in the URL. Definitely
Yes,
go ahead and follow Daniel on Twitter. You can find him on LinkedIn too. He has not updated his LinkedIn profile, but he looks a lot more smarter these
here.
days than the profile.
If you want
Yeah.
anything, if you
Go
have
ahead.
questions of if you need help with some of the what you want, and with
This
feel
way.
free to write on this way.
Yeah.
Yes, Daniel Gomez in all social networks. It will be a pleasure to help you and
All right,
interact.
Daniel, that was great. I hope you pick up more of English and I pick up more of Spanish when we meet next time. We do virtual events. Absolutely loved it, and it looks like also people watching the content really loved it. Thank you so much once again for accepting the invitation. Really happy to have you as a C Sharp MVP and for all that you do for the community. Thank you so much, and yeah, happy summer. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you in the